Morning. So hello everybody and welcome back to our live interviews for the If You're an Engineer project. I hope you're all enjoying British Science and Engineering Week and loving the project so far. We're really looking forward to seeing your entries, and don't forget we need them by the 23rd of March. So we're here today to inspire your engineering designs and give you the chance to meet an engineer and learn about their career and how they got to where they are today. We've already received many entries across the country, so don't forget to send us the designs as soon as they're ready. We've got lots of engineers ready and waiting to mark your fantastic work. Teachers, don't forget we need them by the 23rd of March, and if you need some help with this, just give us a call on 01282 417 333. So now today we're going to interview Alan Stewart from Weir Group in Scotland. Alan said himself in previous meetings that he is a born engineer. So today we're going to look at his career journey and if that's true or not. So over to you, Alan, with your presentation. And we will finish the presentation with a question and answer. So throughout, make sure you get your questions ready and pop it in the chat box. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Josh, and thank you, everybody. And hopefully this will be of interest. And it's a difficult one for me. Because when I was pulling the slides together and thinking about what I wanted to share, I came to the conclusion, and it's a good thing, I've had a relatively uneventful story to this point in my life to date. So that might sound a little bit boring, but if you compare it with Hollywood movies, I'm quite happy that I have had an uneventful career to date. But that got me thinking, well, what is it I want to share, and what have I really learned? And what has helped me have what I think has been a really enjoyable career as an engineer to date. And I don't have a lot of slides, but when I was pulling my slides together, I kept coming back to the same question. And it's a question when I looked back in life, it was a question I've been wrestling with from probably the age of 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Is our engineers, are we born or are we created? And what I mean by that is, if I look at my early years, my time at primary school and the like, I was a really normal child. I loved Lego. I loved my bike. I enjoyed fixing my bike and making sure my bike was working. Lego, I would build what I believe to be fantastic constructions. And in some cases, whether it would be myself or my sister, would simply knock it down and we'd start again and we'd learn something different. I also really enjoyed the thing, as many kids did in the 70s and the 80s, was building plastic model Airfix kits. Remember, this is a life before Xboxes and PS5s and the like, so we really were far more limited in what we could do to explore our imagination. So a big thing for kids of the 70s and 80s were plastic Airfix kits, and the picture in the bottom there is we had many planes right across the ceiling. You would build it, you would paint it, and then you would mock up some battle between perhaps a spaceship and a jet fighter on your bedroom. And you know, all my friends had the same. The one picture you might be looking at, which is a little bit different from all of those, and wondering why is there a picture of a broken washing machine in my early years childhood, as I've tried to decide whether engineers are born this way or are we taught to be engineers. And this was a seminal moment in my childhood, believe it or not. And this is, you know, years before AO.com or Amazon could deliver a washing machine the next day for us. Our family washing machine broke down. We were waiting for the new one to arrive, so my father put the old one in the back garden. And for somebody who sometimes struggles to remember what they had for breakfast this morning, I can remember every hour spent dismantling, exploring, destroying aspects of this washing machine. And in doing so, we weren't trying to fix it. We weren't trying to even understand how it worked. We would just, myself and a friend of mine who is also an engineer, would just take bits out of it, the motor, the wire, the cog wheels, and try and turn it into something different, whether that was, you know, a powered go-kart for Action Man, or whether that was using the colourful wire as something to be shooting out of an Airfix model kit. And for me, this was my first journey, or my first step rather, on the journey of becoming an engineer without actually understanding A, what an engineer was, or secondly, whether or not I wanted to be an engineer. So that led me nicely into high school. You know, this continual thinking about what do I enjoy doing, how do I go about doing it, and very much viewing the brain as a muscle. you've got to use it if you want to improve it, and if you don't use it, you lose it. So high school from primary school, not too much changed for me personally. The subjects definitely got more interesting. They definitely got more difficult. And exams seemed to become every week or every month there was an exam came around. At the time, I didn't really like that, but I understand now the importance of that is, again, using that brain as a muscle and testing the muscle to make sure that what you're learning, you are retaining. The hobbies also didn't change, as you can see in the pictures below. I was still obsessed with building models, flying models, driving models, crashing models, and ultimately rebuilding them. And my only thoughts about becoming an engineer was when I got to 5th year and 6th year, because by this time people are asking you questions. What do you want to do when you leave school? And I, for one, was still in that cycle of I know what I like doing, and I'll do the other stuff because school dictates that's what I need to do. So education was enjoyable, but was very much just part of the route to be allowed to and be able to go out and play with model cars, model planes, outside of school hours. So very much a rite of passage, but again, still not really understanding or thinking about becoming an engineer. 5th and 6th year, you start getting asked that question, and due to the subjects I was studying, the natural evolution for me was to go on and become an engineer, again, without really understanding why, because all my interests were around that, the problem solving, the building things, creating things, some cases destroying things. But when I destroyed it, I always tried to rebuild it. So in the 6th year, off I went to university. University for me was just a kind of continuation of that school evolution, still not fully understanding what an engineer was, what do I need to do to become an engineer, but having this continual sort of niggle, this itch, if you like, that I couldn't scratch, that I enjoy problem solving, I enjoy working as part of a team, I enjoy understanding how everything hangs together. So mechanical engineering was the course for me. Strathclyde University was where I studied it, and in doing so, I met some fascinating people. And I think this was an important part of shaping me as a developing an early career engineer. I met new friends. I met what would ultimately turn out to be colleagues. I met academics who could absolutely inspire. They had been there. They had done really important engineering. They knew things that I could only dream about understanding and knowing about. And then the picture of the grey-haired gentleman in the bottom right-hand corner, as I look at it, was my project supervisor, Professor David Nash. And the importance of friendship and guiding light in my development has stayed with me for almost 30 years now. As David and I, by the work that I do, our paths have crossed again, and I continue to ask him for advice. He continues to offer it. And that was one of the takeaways I took from university on a personal level. I also had the opportunity to study abroad. I traveled to France, spent a year there learning to be an engineer, learning how to be a better skier, actually, if I was being perfectly honest, but one that I tried to keep away from my parents. But the opportunity to study, the opportunity to understand the fundamentals of engineering, the tools that I needed to become an engineer, really got me thinking again, what is an engineer? Am I an engineer? What do I need to do to become an engineer? And I think the most important thing I learned during that time was, and I learned it from the people I studied with, the people who taught me, and the people I met through playing rugby and doing other sports at university, was the skill was to ask and to listen. And I think that's something that stayed with me. I had as a child, it stayed with me through education, and now into further education, being able to ask questions, listen to the answer. Not all the answers were right, but the ability to try and work out what is the right answer for me was another skill that I required to be an engineer. I didn't know that then, and I was still trying to wrestle with what is a good engineer. As you'll see in the top right-hand corner, I still spent a lot of time lying under broken old cars and fixing things that were broken, but that's just part of the story that never seems to go away, unfortunately. Okay, so then I left university. I've studied 2 degrees. I'm a mechanical engineer. I did a postgraduate study. Therefore, am I an engineer? I've got all the tools. I've got the mindset. And I think the answer to that is sort of. I'd been at school, I'd been at university, I'd passed some exams that demonstrated my ability to apply some of the skills of being an engineer. But I didn't really have any practical application. I hadn't really done anything that I would say would define me as an engineer. Started my first job. I was in the oil and gas industry and in the power industry. So how do you get oil out the ground as safely and as efficiently as possible? People need oil. I was an engineer. I was a design engineer. I was working with others to design products, to design solutions, to design pieces of equipment that didn't exist. That was really exciting as an engineer. Am I still am I an engineer yet? Do I have all the skills? Have I completed that journey? Similarly, moving into the power industry, very similar. I got to travel the world. The flags that I've put up there was I saw parts of the world that I would never have gone to, but in doing so, I was taking my engineering skills and making the countries that I was working in better than they were before we got there. We brought power to parts of countries that hadn't had reliable power. So that started to feel like an engineer. But going back to the washing machine, I was always challenged by, am I an engineer or am I training to be an engineer? And it was really good to be part of solving problems, designing products and making sure products that could happen in the future didn't happen because we were using good engineering fundamentals and design. And as I said, seeing the world as we did so. So then at the age of 33, quite far into my engineering career, I joined the company that I'm with today, the Weir Group. I've had various jobs within that, but I've been there now for 17 years. And this is when I really started to understand the importance of engineering and understand how I, as an individual, can participate, can contribute as an engineer. If I look at the pictures that I have up there, I've had a very broad career within Weir. We worked on the servicing of and the maintenance of wind turbines. I worked as part of a team to make sure nuclear power stations stayed safe. I worked again in oil and gas products, making sure we got oil out the ground as efficiently as possible. And now, as we move to a decarbonising world and we try to reduce the amount of CO2 that exists and the amount of energy we need to exist as human beings, I'm working with a team on making mining the most sustainable it can be. So how do we make sure we get the copper out the ground to give us electric vehicles, to get petrol vehicles off the ground, but do that in consuming as little energy as possible? So before I move to my last slide, where I'm going to pose a question to the group to take away and think about, if I look at fixing or destroying a washing machine down to how do I help get minerals out the ground as efficiently as possible, what has actually changed, or what have I learned, or what do I do differently? I think there's three things that jumped out at me preparing the slides. I'm going to be 50 this year, which must seem very, very old to those people listening in. Every day I still learn something new, and I think that is part of engineering. If you've got that inquisitive mind that I had when I was playing with Lego, when I was out on my bike, when I was destroying remote controlled cars, I still wanted to learn. It's something I do today. I still enjoy every day solving problems, whether that's helping my daughter with her homework, all the way down to some of the activities I do within the Weir Group, making materials that fix themselves, looking at how we deploy advanced manufacturing to avoid the use of energy to create new products. And the most important one is I enjoy being part of a team. I work in a team of 20 people who are part of a team of 11,000 people across Weir. And I think as an engineer, those are the three things that I like the most: learning, problem solving, and participation and contribution through a team. So as I said, not the most Hollywood career to date, but who knows what the future might hold. But I did have to decide to be an engineer. I didn't, have to decide to be an engineer. If I go back to the question that I posed, I think I always was. What education and employment have done is given me the tools to be an engineer and continue to be a better engineer. I've always liked, as I said, exploring new ideas, being part of the team, and making things better than they were today. So my challenge to those on the call today, not a question that I want people to shout out, but I'd really like you to go away and think about, is, are you an engineer already? Have you been born as an engineer? So if you like exploring new recipes, like baking and making things, putting different ingredients in to make something new, if you like playing computer games, if you like solving problems within computer games, if you like being part of a team sport, the answer for me is you probably are. And education will be about giving you the tools to be as successful as you possibly can. I, for one, was born an engineer. I every day continue to hopefully become a better engineer through learning, and I hope that's something that you'll take away today and think about as well. Thank you.
Brilliant, Alan. Thank you very much for that. I think you picked us up on some really good points there, especially with the looking at something and seeing past what you first see and trying to understand what's happening on the inside. I think that's a good point to make with it, especially how an engineer is thinking. So we've got plenty of good questions coming through here. So first one, we have, what is your biggest highlight in your career?
That's a really difficult question to answer. I think from an engineering perspective, I talked about when I worked overseas, and I was part of a team that built a power station in Tunisia. And there are plenty of people that do that all around the world. I think why I was most proud of that was, one, the team that I worked within and some of the challenges we overcame, but knowing that what we left was a power station that wouldn't have power cuts. It was in a country that there was only power for 4 hours every day. People didn't have running hot water all the time, things that we take for granted. That was my sort of proudest moment, was when we completed that project, understanding the impact that it had on the country as a whole. Was it was something that I guess I'd be really proud of.
Yeah, perfect. I bet that was really rewarding. The work you've done there has made such a huge difference to many lives.
Absolutely.
And next question. So, at a young age, maybe when you was destroying and rebuilding the washing machine, who was your inspiration, and who do you think inspired you to start thinking like that and start being a bit creative with the?
Oh wow. Inspiration, I think, is a really, really big, bold word. I don't think there was a single individual that inspired me. There was obviously really good teachers that I had at school that encouraged and to do more. I think it was, I tackle things slightly differently. I spoke to a lot of people, whether it was, I played rugby when I was young. So, I got that sort of will to be participate in a team from the coaches and my father and the father of other kids that played rugby. I think within school, it was the teachers that drove me to do things differently, to think differently. Friends of families. My father wasn't an engineer, but I had other friends whose fathers were, mums and dads actually were, and I don't know if they directly inspired me, but they really got me thinking about that. Looks like a lot of fun. Now, most importantly, they encouraged me to dismantle washing machines and break bits of Lego and rebuild that plane that you've just crashed into the ground.
Perfect, brilliant. So it sounds like it's something you started with by yourself growing up, and then as time has gone on and your life has progressed through school, university, you've then been given the tools and had the support to follow that career path. Next question. So what's the biggest challenge you've had to face during your career?
I think we're facing it, if I'm perfectly honest. I think the world it needs to become more effective and more efficient with our use of natural resource. So whether that's, transitioning away from oil and gas into renewables. I think for the people on this call, they're going to live through the decisions that we make. So I think the challenges in my day-to-day job is helping the Weir Group make mining more sustainable, making sure we use the least amount of energy required to get the minerals out of the ground that are required for mobile phones, for electric cars, for electric planes, for electric boats, because that's where the challenges are going to lie. And I think as an engineer, once you've solved something, that's history. You're now looking for the next challenge. So my answer is let's look to the future challenges. There's some massive environmental challenges out there, but I know that engineers and scientists will be the people that will solve this.
Perfect, brilliant. And next question we've got is, would you like your daughter to become an engineer, and how important is female representation in the industry?
My daughter won't have a choice. She's surrounded by engineers in our house. Would I like? I'd love her to do whatever makes her happy. I think she will be an engineer. I think she'd quite like to be an engineer. She's very creative, so I think she'd be a very good design engineer. I think she might design some really snazzy products. There's not enough diversity and inclusion in engineering. So when I was at university in 1990, which probably seems like a lifetime ago, I think there was probably 90% men or guys and 10% girls. That's not changed too much, unfortunately, across the last 20, 30 years. So it's strange being a man trying to inspire girls into engineering. If I can do that with the one that lives with me, that will be a success. If I can do that with more, that would be phenomenal. But yeah, my call to action is it's an inclusive career, and we really need to not think about it only as an engineer, only as a career for boys. It's a career for everybody.
Perfect. And have you ever made any mistakes in your career? And is that a good thing to learn and overcome?
If you're a good engineer, you'll make mistakes every day. So yeah, I've made a lot of mistakes, and you've kind of answered the question. I completely agree. Every mistake is a great opportunity to learn. Where it becomes a problem is if you make the mistake over and over again because you've not learned. But engineers learn through mistakes. We have some fundamental knowledge, we have some capability. But if you're making something that's never been made before, or you're repairing something that is extremely complex, you're going to make mistakes. You've just got to be comfortable with it.
Perfect, brilliant. And what do you enjoy most about your job?
I think it's two things, Josh. I think it's the team. I really enjoy being part of a team, and I go back to one of the first slide. I've always from an early age enjoyed team sports. So I think the team's absolutely key, and also learning. I think we live in a fascinating time. You look at the acceleration of technology. My daughter can't believe that I didn't have the internet when I was her age. She cannot believe. She asked me how old was I when I got a smartphone, and I said I was 30. She almost falls over when she hears that. So we're living at a time that I just can't wait to see what the future is going to look like, and how we can, as engineers and scientists, can help shape it.
Perfect. And we've touched on this a little bit around teamwork, but how important is teamwork within engineering, and why?
For me, teamwork's critical. If you are trying to come up with a new design, you need as many different ideas as possible. So you don't just want a team of like-minded thinkers. You want a team of people who don't think like you. So as many different ideas. So for me, teamworking is critical. And the importance of it, just building on that diversity of thought, capacity. One person can't do everything. At some point, you need, 1 + 1 can equal 3. So for me, I said in the last slide, if you enjoy team sport, you enjoy solving problems, you enjoy anything as a team, it can be the computer club. You're learning to be an engineer already.
And what advice would you give to anyone in school who is currently thinking about a career in engineering, and what sort of age would you say this is quite important to start thinking about?
That's a great question, because I'm still not sure what I want to do with my life. I'm still figuring that out. So I think the advice I would give is be resilient, because there are so many different routes into engineering. I went via a kind of conventional route. I went to school, university, employment. Some of the best engineers I've met have followed completely different routes. So I don't think there's a fixed path. So don't be too set on the way you want to go, because if you want to be an engineer, you'll find your way there. So I think on that advice, be resilient and be flexible. I think regarding when is the right time to make that decision, I think just continually asking yourself the question about what do you enjoy doing. There wasn't a lot of career advice when I was at school, so I kind of relied on my parents, friends of my parents, and as I said, like the rugby coach, scout leaders, who only now I realize were always asking me, what do you want to do? And they would ask me, what do you enjoy doing? And that would sort of shape my thinking. So I think if you have that group of people that can ask you, or if you don't, ask yourself, what do I enjoy doing? Do I like problem solving? Some of the subjects are difficult, so you've got to be committed. But I think there's never too late to make the decision. But I think if you're in, O levels, O grades, second, third year isn't too important. By the time you're getting to sit your A levels or your higher,s you've got to have an idea. But it's never too late to change. I had friends who studied engineering and then went to be accountants. There are people that I know are engineers that did studied arts. So the beauty of it is, with the right mindset, you can decide to be an engineer whenever you want.
Brilliant. And where is the best place you have travelled to with work, and why?
Oh, the best place. Tunisia was one of my favourites because I really like history, and I imagine I'm probably the only person that likes this aspect of history, but the Roman-Carthaginian War. So there was a lot of Roman influence in Tunisia and in Libya. So so aside from work, I really like getting out and exploring. I've also enjoyed I've been in Australia quite a bit. I like that because of, dare I say, the weather and the people and the sport. There was a big rugby event on at the same time that I just managed to be there for. And I think professionally, probably India, because some of the colleagues I have in India are the most passionate engineers I've ever met. The ambition to make tomorrow better than today is in every single person I meet in India. So I absolutely love spending time in India, and I also like the food, which helps as well. But yeah, so not a single answer there. I think every country I've enjoyed for a different reason, whether that's the weather, the people. But probably it all actually distills down to the people. But India, if you were pushing me for an answer, I'd say India.
Brilliant. And out of the roles within Weir Group, which one has been your favourite, and which one has allowed you to learn the most?
So nobody can repeat this outside this call, but I tell everybody that I meet, I've got the best job in Weir. The job I've got right now is the best job I've got in Weir, and I'll try and explain why. And again, nobody can repeat this because it doesn't really feel like a job, if I'm perfectly honest. I work with a group of people who are looking at new technology. So we're developing things that have never been done before, and we're doing it with a broad and diverse group of people all around the globe. So to give you some examples, we are looking at additive manufacturing, 3D printing. So we've got some robots and we've got some materials, and we're looking at what we can do with programming robots. We're looking at materials that can actually heal themselves. So a bit like Terminator, how do we actually create a material that can heal itself? And we're looking at artificial intelligence. How do we create computers that can talk to each other and communicate and make decisions? So as long as you don't tell too many people, I think the job I've got right now is the best one, and it's probably the best one in Weir. But there are 11,000 other people in Weir that would probably want this job. So keep that to yourself.
And last question we have here, which is quite a good one to end on. Have you ever used your engineering skills in your personal life?
Yeah, I think on a lot of different levels. I think the problem solving, just how you approach a problem and don't give up on a problem can, affect everything that you do, from, helping your daughter with her homework to, I ride motorbikes now as well, and you find yourself in the middle of nowhere and it doesn't work, and you've got no way to get home and your mobile phone's out of charge. So I think on a technical level, absolutely. But I think just on an outlook on life, that realizing that, what we buy and what we throw in the rubbish once we've bought it has an effect on the planet, and therefore knowing what that effect on the planet can be comes from engineering, and understanding how I don't need to buy that, or how I can recycle that, or how I can repurpose that is all a type of engineering. So I think, yeah, engineer at work and engineer at home without a shadow of a doubt.
Perfect, brilliant. Well, that's been absolutely fantastic, Alan. Thank you very much for sharing your career journey and some engineering insights with us. We hope that's really inspired everybody with their Leaders Award If You're an Engineer, What Would You Do designs. And remember, we need those by the 23rd of March, and we can't wait to see them. And we hope the interview has inspired you to come up with some amazing ideas yourself. So once again, thank you very much, Alan Stewart from Weir Group. We really appreciate your time today, and we look forward to seeing the entries that follow.
Thanks, Josh, and thanks everyone for the questions. Give me some things to think about today.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much. Take care.